You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. The views and comments expressed in this podcast are not necessarily those of the AMAA or our sponsors. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. Presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org. Breaking barriers, one move at a time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Label. I'm JD.
I'm Charlie Murphy.
Hey, today, Charlie, we're joined by Devin Fernandez. And Devin's been a part of our organization since the beginning.
Oh, very nice.
Right around
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Right around the time you threw out the challenge, we were looking for some folks to join us and help us on the consulting board, and Devin is like, hey, I can help with that. So
very nice. What's your background, Devin? In
well,
martial arts? Do you have a background in martial arts, or?
Yes, I have a second-degree black belt in Ninpo Ninjutsu, that's Nidan, and also in Kokusai Jiu-Jitsu, second-degree black belt in that as well. And I've been training for over 21 years. I've been teaching the martial arts for over 15 years. So it's been a while, and primarily I teach the blind self-defense.
Okay. Are you blind yourself?
Yes, I am. Actually, I'm total right now. When I first started, I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. And this is when I first started training in the martial arts to begin with. And I had great eyesight at the time, and it slowly diminished to the point where right now I can sometimes see light perception. So I'm almost total right now.
Oh, wow. How was the adjustment? I mean, it's been over the last 20 years.
Yes. Yeah. I've known about it for over 20 years.
Okay.
And, it's kind of like a grieving process, because you get through one stage and you say, oh wow, my vision is decreasing. And then, you come back to that same area a week later, 2 weeks later, and you go, holy cow, I was able to see that last week, and now I don't see it this week, and then, so it's a continuous grieving and challenging and motivating, and, because now it kind of pushes you a little bit to continue to move forward. So, it's kind of like no choice,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jason. The name of your organization, Third Eye Insight, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
And that's in is that upstate New York?
No, actually, it's on Long Island in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Third Eye Insight, everybody knows what the third eye is, right? In the center of your forehead, where you get your insight from, So I thought it was appropriate for a blind organization, because we use more of our insight now than we do with our external sight.
yeah, it's for me, Devin. I was first exposed to the disability that you have through another friend of mine who actually started in martial arts. The disease hasn't progressed as much as yours for him, or at least last I talked to him. But he has it too, and so a lot of the struggles that he was going through on the dojo floor, obviously not knowing any better, he attributed them to his disability, right? And we were just like, no, that's just martial arts, man. It's hard.
Right.
And he never really quite, I don't think, or at the time, didn't really believe, that he could defend himself or that he could do it. And you see him years later, and now he's just, it's night and day, So it's helped him, confidence wise, and
Yeah.
things like that. And and you were a big driving force in that, because when he wanted to quit, we turned him on to you. Talk to Devin, and
Yeah.
he'll, and so you inspired him to keep going. So I want you to know that,
Oh
and
wow, that's good to hear.
yeah,
That's
and
good
as
to hear.
far as I know, he's still training today.
Oh, good, good, good. And yeah, as you said, the martial arts isn't easy. And kind of in my situation as I'm getting older, it's harder on the body too. So then you become a better martial artist, a smarter martial artist. You know, and then almost like you get into the philosophy part of the martial arts, because you realize that the violence part of it has no place. So it's more of a spiritual journey.
So
And-
how do you go about it? Like, let's say, for example, as far as self defense goes, if somebody was to come at you, are you feeling for whatever you can get a hold of, and to grab that and to try and take that to the ground? Is that
well,
kind of like?
yeah, yeah, that's a great question because honestly, obviously, I can't defend against a punch. I just can't see it.
Mhm.
So, but once I get a hold of you, then it's a different situation. I tell all the students, don't go to the ground because you don't know what's going to happen when you get down to the ground. You can have somebody else, there's another friend there with them, and meanwhile you think you're grappling with one person, and another
Mhm.
friend's trying to kick you while you're down. So we teach a lot of how to orient yourself to the attacker. Like kind of knowing if his hand is on my arm or got my chest, or I know which hand it is and I know where to move to get away from the other hand. So I don't want to be on the inside of somebody and he's holding me one hand and he's punching me with the other. I want to be on the outside of that punching hand, so it's harder for him to reach around and direct the punch. And at the same time, then try to do a wrist lock, elbow joint lock or manipulation, or all these other things that you can do, kicking and so forth, and take out the knees and stomp the feet, and it's just a lot that you can do once you have the hold of the person.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, it's as somebody that's done adaptive martial arts, to sit and listen to you speak. Um, I mean, I have my struggles myself, and I'm like, man, this is tough, and just to know that sense of sight is not there, and for you to do it as well as you do, is amazing, and the way that you speak about feeling it, and not actually you know seeing it, and not being afraid to take a punch and then
Mhm.
go to work. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's it's pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah. And I tell the students this all the time. If here I am, I'm blind. You attacked me. I'm defending myself. I let's say I get the higher hand. Now I take you to the ground. I put you in a wrist lock. I'm holding you there. What do I do to you? Here at that point, if I don't have anybody there to help assist me, I don't know what this guy's going to do if I let him back up.
Mhm.
So I got to break something. So if it's his wrist, to break the wrist. If it's the arm, to break the arm. But I can't give this guy a second chance to come back at me, and then I'm in real trouble. Because now he knows of my disability, and he knows not to grab. You know, so it's a tough choice there.
Uh,
Thank goodness I never had to make that.
Now, how do you go about, as an instructor? I mean, how do you know that your student is doing the correct kata or whatever instruction you're happen to throw out? I mean, how are you able to do that?
Well, two ways. One is I have sighted volunteers
Okay.
who help assist. The second way is when it comes to the wrist locks and the setups and stuff like that, I I do it to them so they feel what the pain feels like, and then I let them do it to me so that I know that they're actually doing it correctly. So we do it with control. So nobody really gets hurt, and you'll know that, if I have you in a wrist lock and your body is bouncing because you can't take the pain, your nerves, I think I got it,
I got it.
uh, and they, they the same way when they feel my body moving because of, the response to the lock, and that's a feeling there you kind of pick up and look for.
Yeah, it's definitely a feeling that you recognize real quick for sure. Uh, when
Yeah.
somebody got you in a joint lock, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll say Uncle 7 times over because.
That's
Uh,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
so 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 I have to ask you from a martial arts standpoint. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. How do you get yourself to go from being, uh, a person with sight to where you're at now, and how do you I mean, the way you describe it, it's so effortless to you. Did you have any trouble, or how did you have to retrain yourself, I guess is the question I'm really asking.
Okay. So when I started, I had sight. So, and during that journey to black belt is when I found out that I was losing my sight. So I always kind of trained with the thinking that someday I may not have sight. So I would kind of close my eyes and feel it. And if I didn't see or feel it the right way, I'd open my eyes and look and say, oh, okay, that's what that is. That's what that feels like. But then as, my vision got worse, I what do you call it? I had to adjust in my not only my thinking, but in my description, because when we first started the class, I tell people, something silly like, all right, grab the hand like this. And half the people can't see that, and then you got to realize, oh, shoot, I forgot, and so now you change your description, and your description is in such a way that really anybody can do it. Close your eyes, and this is what you're looking at. This is what you're seeing in your head, you know, kind of thing. So that was the challenge, and sometimes still is. And because I'll describe something, and then nobody's moving. I was like, what's the matter? You gonna get it? What you want me to say it again? What's the story? You know. But yeah, but the sighted volunteers, quite honestly, are a tremendous help.
Your sighted volunteers, if you ever have them throw on a blindfold so that you can kind of find out if the way you're describing a move is being received, or
right.
That's what
Yep. Yeah, I have done that in the past. I haven't done that recently, only because the class goes so fast, and we can do it, and it certainly is doable because we sometimes don't have volunteers, and we do it on our own. But it takes a little longer, and I don't want to really waste class time. But yeah, I have done that in the past. Blindfolded people, and even had different types of blindfolds. One where you could just see through it, so you're kind of visually impaired, and one where it's total blackout, and yeah, and to a lot of people, they get to feel it, but then they get to take the blindfold off. So it's like, yeah, wow, that's something. This is cool, but it's not cool. It's a way of life, So this is just to show you that this is what we go through. But but I do get, it does give people a sense of appreciation for what they do have.
Yeah.
Charlie, we one time in class, everybody was blindfolded. We kind of did, because I trained alongside regular students that were able-bodied, but then I also attended an adaptive class that was more suited to making adjustments. And that was one of the things, was we had such a gamut of disabilities within that class, so that like one week we would work blindfold, the next week we would work seated, so that people could see what it was like to be in a wheelchair, and so we worked the different disabilities, and it gives you a great uh, appreciation for for disabilities. I mean, as you found out when we did the experiment there at the radio station that time.
Yeah, I was gonna say my dad was a special ed teacher, and during his training, they had set up a device where almost like braces. So it was a wooden devices so that he would be able to feel what it's like for somebody who's walking in a brace, and I thought that was pretty cool to, at least give you that feeling of what they're doing, what's going on in their life.
Sure.
Yeah. So Devin, what do you what do you say to other martial arts instructors out there who may be apprehensive about working with people with disabilities? What do you say to them, both as an instructor and then as an instructor with a disability of your own?
I tell them, send them to me. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. I think the big part of it is patience and almost trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Regardless of what it is, if there's a hearing impairment, give yourself a hearing impairment so you can understand. A lot of people have hearing impairments that they don't want to tell you about, and you say something and they're shaking their head, but that's the wrong response, and they know the right response, but they just didn't hear it, yeah. And coming from my perspective, and I still see this in class when I train, they forget that you have a disability, which is good, until they remember, and I call it, a lot of times I get the blind treatment, so watch out, here comes Sensei Devin, watch out, everybody wants to help, and that's great, but I don't always need that help, but I certainly don't turn it down either, because I know it's coming from a good place.
What and what sort of, because everybody thinks of modifications and they're like, wow, I would do an adaptive program, but it's major modifications. It's it would be in-depth modifications. What has been your experience with modifications? Because basically what I have found is that the modifications are not all that as difficult as we sometimes think they might be.
Right. And the part of that is that we all have different abilities. So, a technique that I may be able to do on somebody smaller may not be able to do on that same person. So you got to modify it. You got to make it work. So it's all about editing and modifying and making it, yours. So we were kicking the other day, and I was telling the students, I used to be able to kick somebody up in the chest. Now I want to take out their knee because I don't want to kick up that high. So I got to modify my kicks. So all right. So I don't kick in the chest, I kick in the knee.
More foot stomps.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to modify it, and you change with age, and you change with everything, body and everything. So.
Yeah. And then what do you say to the people out there? And that's the thing about this podcast is it's pretty straight up, and so I'm no fool. I know there are people out there that are watching this, listening to this, going, "Oh yeah, well, how does a blind guy really do this? Like, can he really defend himself?" So what do you say to that?
Well, yeah, it's definitely doable. It's not like the on TV where, you could, somebody try to hit you with a bat and you duck, we do practice that, but I mean, that would be a very rare situation where I'd be able to hear it and duck, before I got hit by it. But yeah, it is all doable. And that's why the martial arts works for all types of people. So, again, little people, tall people, short people, fat people, thin people, all abilities. So,
you said that you could hear the bat coming. Now, do you find that with the loss of your sight, that your other senses have have kind of taken over and been more powerful?
I find that I'm more aware of my other senses. And I was in a class the other day with my instructor, and I was just sitting there while he was testing some of the students, and I was trying to figure out how many students were in the room, by the noise that they were making. And I got pretty close. And it was probably because one or two students were very quiet, but I was able to pick out how many parents were in the room as well, by just listening, and then hearing when somebody came in the front door of the dojo. I heard the door open, and it's just things that all of a sudden that you just become aware of, so, and then of course, smell plays a big role. You walk through the streets and you smell everything, people smoking, people drinking, people, exhaust fumes, fireplaces, or the laundry, you can smell that, as you walk past the person's house, so.
It's yeah, and so I have to ask you, and this may sound like a stupid question, but what's a bat sound like? Like when it's coming at your head, what does it sound like?
It sounds like a bad day.
There you go. Well, what do you say, Charlie? We take a little bit of a break here, and
sure.
Then we'll come back.
So you're listening to Beyond the Label. It's a raw, real-life look at living life with disabilities, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. AdaptiveMartialArts.org, breaking barriers one move at a time. Right back with Devin Fernandez, the founder of the Third Eye Insight in Ipswich, New York, coming right back.
Beyond the Label, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. It's no secret, every martial artist, no matter their age, dreams of becoming a legend. Having their name listed among the greats like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan. You can hide it or deny it, but you know it's true. Being a legend takes raw talent, dedication, big breaks, and an ability to survive a roller coaster called fame. But it also takes one more thing to go with it. The best gear and equipment in the world from the company that is martial arts, Sensei Martial Arts. They aren't just another martial arts supplier that's never set foot on a mat. They are martial artists, and that means they know their products and use what they sell. From uniforms and training gear to weapons and equipment, Sensei has it all for every martial arts style. Although you may never be listed among the greats, you can still shop like one at SenseiMartialArts.com and unleash your legend within. Sensei Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. Presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association. Check them out at AdaptiveMartialArts.org.
And we're back. It's Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. Charlie Murphy here. That's Jason Davis, and we've got Devin Fernandez, the founder,
Founder and program director.
Founder and program director of Third Eye Insight in East Islip, New York. Did I say that correctly this time?
Perfect. There you go.
All right. Well, yeah, we definitely appreciate you being here. Devin was born sighted, and I guess is the way to say, I'm not sure, but lost your eyesight at about what age?
I found out about the my condition. I have was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. I'd say probably about when I was turning 40.
Okay, and so what is that? What does that disability entail? Like what causes it? And how does it progress? And does it progress the same for everyone, or is it different depending on your circumstances?
Well, retinitis pigmentosa is the degeneration of the rods and cones in the retina. And forgive me if I don't know which one does what, but one of them controls your night vision, your depth perception, um, and um, and light sensitivity. So what happened with me is I was in an explosion. I was an electrician, and I was working on an electric panel, and it blew up in my face. At the time, I was blinded at the time, but momentarily from the flash. Years later, I regained my sight. Years later, I was starting to have issues with my vision. The bright lights would bother me. Walking to somebody's house, and it took a while for my eyes to adjust. And even when I was in the house, when I went from room to room, it would, depending on the light in that room, it would take time for my eyes to adjust. So I went to the doctor, and he says, "Oh, you have retinitis pigmentosa." And he said it so nonchalantly, like I had floaters, or it was no big deal. I said, "All right." So I went home. A year later, my vision's getting worse, and I go back to him. He says, "I told you have this condition." So I looked it up, and it's a degenerative disease of the retina, and eventually it'll eat up my retina and cause blindness. And from my experience, I know other people who have this condition, and it hasn't progressed as fast as mine has, because they're almost at the same spot they were when I met them, 10, 11 years ago, where 10, 11 years ago, I was able to see facial recognition, read off the bus, so forth. And now I can't even see the bus, so a big change in mine. And my doctor said that it usually burns itself out. What would he say? 10 to 15 years once it starts. So I'm kind of coming up to that point now where it's burning itself out, but it's also already almost ate up my entire retina. So, I would have wished it stopped sooner, but, unfortunately it hasn't. And so, and through this journey, I was able to see when I went to the retinal specialist, the how it was decreasing, because they took pictures of the retina, put it up on the screen, and you see some black spots. And I come back, a few months later, and there's more black spots. And then a few months later, and then to the point where now I can't even see the screen, because it just had all blacked out. But I feel that I will regain my sight back through technology, and, gene therapy or stem cell research, or any of the other areas that are being researched now. So I do have faith in that, and I would definitely, suggest everybody to keep that same faith for themselves. We've come a long way. I mean, look, people used to go blind from cataracts, and now they just pull the cataract out of the eye, and your vision is better. So we're in the right track. You just have to be patient.
So was your condition, was that caused by the electrical panel explosion? Or
Yeah.
did it not have anything to do with the other?
Well, it depends on what doctor I went to. So one doctor said, "No, this is hereditary. You got to, this is going to happen." The other doctor told me this was trauma to the eyes. And what it did is it triggered an autoimmune response. So the flash scarred my retina. And then my immune system said, "Let's get rid of the scar." But instead, it got rid of the retina. So, so depending on which one you talk to, and it depends on how I feel on which one I believe, but they come up with a therapy, and my doctor said, "Don't be a guinea pig, don't jump on that first clinical trial that promises this and that. Let it, work itself out before you try it."
You're married, and so your wife has been with you through this journey. How has it been? Like, we get your perspective, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I could go through what this guy goes through, or what my buddy Josh goes through, but I know that with my own disability, it can tend to be sometimes tough on my wife, and so I wondered from that perspective, what your experience was.
Yeah. And when this first happened, this explosion, my wife was 8 months pregnant. So I had the explosion, blah, blah, blah. They sent me into the hospital. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital in the burn ward. And, they told her, if it upsets you too much, we won't let you in. And then like 3 weeks later, my first son was born. So, from almost that time there, she had a lot on her plate. She had a newborn baby. She had me to deal with, and it took me, a couple of years to really, for the healing to settle in. But I've been blessed. I've been blessed. I got a good woman. She's got my back. Of course, times are difficult for both of us. And sometimes a lot of it falls on her shoulders, and which I try not to let that happen. So that's why I do as much as I can, just to relieve some of the burden on her. But yeah, there's a lot of responsibility that she had to take on. Not had to, she took on. And yet I hear of other couples who situations like this happen, and the other spouse can't deal with it. I didn't sign up for this. This isn't the way I want my life to be. And they split up, and, to each their own. I'm not judging anybody, but I've been very fortunate.
Yeah. Do you ever kind of get down on yourself, or like, why this have to happen to me? Do you throw that pity party, as they say, every now and then, or are you pretty?
Yeah. Every now and then, I don't do that wise me thing, because that doesn't help. This is what it is. It's, this is what happened, and this is the situation I have to deal with. So it does stink, but I still, got to deal with it. But there's a lot of times, I wish I could do this, but I can't do that anymore. I wish I could drive. I mean, honestly, that's I lost that privilege, a while back. But that loss of kind of freedom, it takes a toll. So you're kind of dependent on other people, and that stinks. But you got to do what you got to do, and you got to make things work, and you got to make the best of it. So yeah, I think it's natural to get down, and but I don't dwell there. I don't hang there.
Have you found that as a result of the disability, you actually maybe do things that you never thought you would ever do before, like maybe picked up a different hobby, things like that?
Yeah, actually, funny you say that, because I always wanted to play the saxophone. So when I started losing my vision and I stopped working, I got in contact with an organization in Manhattan called the Lighthouse Guild that offered music lessons to the blind. So I started taking music lessons. So I started playing the sax, which I enjoy. I'm certainly nothing to talk about, and I'm not even amateur level yet, but that's something I always wanted to do, and I took that opportunity to do that, So and then a few things, I arrange outdoor recreational events as well, and one of them was surfing. So when I had sight, I would never surf. It's like, I'm not doing that. What, are you crazy? But when I lost my vision, I was like, well, you can't see it. You can't be afraid of it, So and then it was a blast, So I kind of flipped the script a little bit on that one.
Yeah, Devin, actually, you've come up to our neck of the woods here up in Vermont a couple of times, and been up on Killington and Pico with Vermont Adaptive Ski. Am I not correct?
That's correct. And you talk about an experience. Holy cow! That was a lesson in patience and trust, and being able to keep your heart in your chest, and it was very exciting. It was very exciting. Going down the hill and you're waiting for somebody to tell you when to turn. And then as you're going, oh, this guy better tell me to turn soon because I feel like I'm going to go into the trees. And then he tells you to turn and you take that breath and then you go the other way and you say to start the same, anxiety. But it's, it was definitely is something I recommend. You got to get out there. You just got to do it.
Do you have a dog?
I do. I have a collie shepherd. And I got her here on Long Island at the Smithtown Guide Dog Foundation. She's a fantastic dog. She's 10 years old, so they're kind of encouraging me to start looking for a replacement to retire her because they kind of need a break after a while, Okay. So I'm.
They always have to be on, right?
Yeah, they're always on, and a lot of times they kind of depend on the owner, the handler, to guide them where for instance, where I want her to go. So if I let her make the decision, sometimes I may find myself, not where I want to be. So and it depends. Like we do a lot of neighborhood walks. So we get to a certain corner and, either I go right or left, depending on what I'm doing. And she'll like thinking, okay, let's go left and go, no, come on, we're going the other way. But I got to say, having the guide dog has given me tremendous independence. Thinking about having to retire her makes me think about what do I want to do? Do I want to get another dog at this point? But if I don't, then I lose some of my independence. Right. So and it's a long commitment. Which I'm not afraid of that. I mean, we've had 5 dogs in my past. All pets until I got her. But and then now she becomes a pet, and she's a pet in the household anyway. When she's off leash, off harness.
In wrapping up here, what advice would you have to a martial artist that's an adaptive martial artist? What do you say to somebody? What's your advice?
Well, if you're if you want to have a longevity in the martial arts, you got to pick something that is going to work for you. So I would suggest that you try different styles, because each style you learn would be something you put in your toolbox. You may like where you are now, and that's fantastic, but try something else anyway. Try a Tai Chi class and or Taekwondo or a grappling class, and you may find that, oh wow, I like all this too, or you may gravitate towards something else. But the biggest thing is not to give up if that's what you're interested in. Things that are worthwhile sometimes aren't easy to achieve. But if you're persistent and you keep at it, then you'll get there. Don't look to rush. Rush the journey. It could take a lifetime. So take your time, and it's like music. You find something you like, and you play there, and then you learn something else, and you grow from that, and that's what it's all about. We're all learning and growing and experiencing life, in our own way.
Yeah, and now from the instructor perspective, what do you say to an instructor that may be apprehensive about working with somebody that has a disability, whether that be a visual impairment, a physical impairment? What do you say?
Be patient, try to get into the student's head a little bit and, see what works for them, see what frustrates them, how to get over that, teach them how to get over that frustration or how to deal with it. And most instructors, they're all good instructors. They want to see their students grow. They want to see their students learn. And they too want to accept that challenge and take that challenge to help the other person. So if you got a good instructor, it, stick with it.
Well, it's a great thing you're doing. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It sounds like, and just keep it up. And next time we talk to you, I want to hear you playing Baker Street on that saxophone.
No, I don't think you do.
How do folks get in touch with you?
Okay, so they could go on my website, which is www.thirdeyeinsight.org, all spelled out. They can reach me by phone at 631-445-3464, or they can email me at senseidevin.thirdeyeinsight@gmail.com.
All right, Jason, let's wrap things up. Folks, you've been listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. It's been presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. AdaptiveMartialArts.org, breaking barriers one move at a time. Thanks again to our special guest, Devin Fernandez from Third Eye Insight. Jason, we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely, buddy. Another fun one in the books.
All right, we'll see you.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Label. If you'd like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, email contact@adaptivemartialarts.org. Beyond the Label is produced by JD Production and presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org. Breaking barriers, one move at a time.